Hey boys and girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors Rich!
And Wildmen. What's happening, Doug?
Well, unless people are living under a rock, they've got to know that another black man, 20-year-old Daunte Wright, was shot and killed, according to the Brooklyn Center police officers. And I've got some questions after watching the video. And we've got Jim Houck. He is a security expert. He's a writer, director, and he's got some interesting things to point out in the video. And for the people who are listening and not watching our Warriors and Wildmen podcast, we're going to review the shooting video of Daunte Wright and the Brooklyn Center cop, Kim Potter, who supposedly shot him. And I'll tell you what, Jim, welcome to Warriors and Wildmen, big dog.
Thanks, brother. I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
So let's all watch the video now. All right, so just like I said, unless you live under a rock, you've got to have seen what's been going on in the Minneapolis area. And Daunte Wright was killed, supposedly shot by Kim Potter. The reason I have so much problem with this, Jim and Rich, is the first thing that just blows my mind is, like, why did Kim Potter even get involved? It looked to me like the cop had him. And then she rocks up, and then everything just goes, downhill from there. So when she approaches, so Daunte jumps back into his car. He's trying to evade them. Looks like he's, trying to drive off and leave the scene. And she says, "I'll tase you." And she's got her pistol drawn. Now, Jim, Rich, you guys have shot a lot. Isn't there some kind of weight distinction, and isn't there some kind of configuration distinction between a frickin' fully loaded Glock or whatever she was using and a damn taser? I mean, don't they put them on opposite sides of the body? Help me with this, Jim. A 26-year-old or 26 years in the department who does weapon training to underlings all of a sudden gets her flippin' pistol confused with her taser. I don't know. I'm calling bullshit on that one, brother.
There are a number of things that stand out to me as somebody who's, actually been a police officer and worked a long time in security and worked, a long time with firearms and tasers. There are a number of things. And if you go to 28 seconds into the video that you sent me, you're going to see something very interesting. What you'll see is the female officer with what looks like just a stock service Glock in her right hand. And then you're going to see the male officer standing right next to her. And on his left hip is his taser. And that indicates how that department carries their tasers. Now, there may be some small configuration variations on how they carry them, but it's usually pretty uniform for a reason. A, so the operator doesn't make a mistake, and B, so if another officer needs to know where their gear is on a different officer, they have a sense of where it's at, so it's not just, crazy all over the place custom stuff. You'll notice the male officer's taser is in a holster on his left hip and it's facing backwards. In other words, it would be, he would be doing a right-hand draw, and he'd have to reach clear across his waist to get his taser because he's clearly right-handed. That's why it's set up facing backwards. If he was left-handed, it'd probably be the opposite, and his pistol would be on his left-hand side, or what we call the dominant shooting hand. So this officer is clearly right-handed. That's her right hand holding her service weapon. So she's pulled her pistol, and yes, she would instantly notice the grip difference and the weight difference, and the gun's right in front of her. Now, somebody could argue, well, she was it was such a stressful situation. She wasn't looking at her weapon. She was looking at the suspect, or she didn't notice the weapon. She was focused on the suspect. Fair enough. And she should be focused on the suspect because the suspect has become very non-compliant. And you don't know what he's going to do in the car. You know if he's going to go for a weapon. You know if he's going to stomp on the gas and run over the other officers, which all that stuff happens all the time. But what's weird is if she drew from her right hip where her pistol's mounted with her right hand and didn't realize that's extraordinary for a 26-year veteran. That's like saying you got your feet mixed up and you pushed on the gas pedal with your left foot. It's literally that inexplicable. Right. But let's just roll with it. Let's say that happened. Okay, fair enough. She pushed on the right seated gas pedal with her left foot and didn't even realize it. She was so freaked out. Maybe. I mean, you're starting to see the less and less likely that this is a legitimate video as I burn through this. So then she yells, "Taser, taser, taser." The other officer who she damn near shoots, it looks like, if that's, if this video is assumed to be authentic, and I have enormous doubts about the authenticity of this entire situation based on this video, she should have never done what she did. I mean, the way she's handling that weapon and the way she sweeps or runs the muzzle across her partner is incredibly dangerous. But here's another question. How did she not feel the weight difference, the handle difference? The deployment of the weapon is completely different because it would be on her left hip, mounted backwards, just like her right-handed partner. But here's where it goes completely haywire for me. You could somehow possibly convince me that a 26-year veteran got this nervous and made this kind of immeasurably gigantic mistake. Is this one of those new guns that makes zero noise when you fire it? Because there's audio all over this thing. All the audio. I've gone through it over and over, and I look for a motion, and I hear the audio. I look for the officer's buckle, on his duty belt grinding up against the car, and there's audio for it.
Yeah.
You know what the loudest sound in this video would be, right?
I think the gunshot. Yeah.
Where the hell's the gunshot? I mean, seriously, where's the gunshot? If you said
you can hear again, I'll tase you, taser, taser, taser. You can hear that, like you said. You can hear, them bumping against the car. You can hear his feet, in the floorboard. You can hear all that, and you can't hear a freaking gunshot at close range in the video. I mean.
Oh, it would be deafening. It would be dominant for the period of time it took that gunshot to ring out. You would lose all other sound. In fact, this is comical. Now, if you go to second 29, you see what looks like a partial slide on the slide. Because when you fire a pistol, especially when you fire a pistol one-handed, especially when you're a reasonably smaller gal firing a pistol one-handed, whether you're a marksman and an expert in pistol craft or not, there will be slide. The upper slide will cycle to load the next round, and there will be muzzle flip, and there'll be a pretty good amount of muzzle flip. And I'm 200 pounds and I've shot a lot. If I shoot one-handed, I have to compensate for the extra muzzle flip because my left hand's not helping to compensate for the extra muzzle flip. Her left hand never touches that weapon that I see. Yet there's essentially no muzzle flip, and there's the weirdest little short cycle. It seems like which immediately I think simunition round, because why is there no muzzle flip? Where's the sound, for heaven's sake? And also look how close she is at 29, 30. I mean, she's very close to the suspect, and supposedly she's firing the weapon. Now the police officer, her partner's head is inside the car at 29 seconds. And if she fired that weapon, he'd have all kinds of hearing issues that would be prevalent. Now, maybe he does, but where's the sound that would create the hearing issue? And not only that, where's the muzzle flip? And also, where's the report of the muzzle blast on the suspect's clothing? Because we do all kinds of training from long, long ways out, 100 yards out with pistol, all the way to zero. Where you're up against the target to simulate that, right? When you're close to that target, when you're within a foot or two of that target, which she sure is, you'll disintegrate a hard cardboard target. It looks like you threw a soccer ball through it after the second round. The first round, it looks like you put your foot through it. It just rips the cardboard to pieces or blows a hole in it. The second round, it always completely obliterates the target, and you're just shooting through, daylight, or you hang up a new target every time. There's absolutely no way that you wouldn't get clothing. You know, there'd be clothing movement. There'd be all kinds of muzzle gas blast visible. I don't see it. Now, this isn't a perfect video, but there's just so much wrong with this. I just think, what in the hell are you talking about? Now, apparently where she fired, the other officer reaches back in with handcuffs, and then he pulls back. And the audio on her taser sounds remote. It sounds like it was mixed in later. And it sounds like they forgot the gunfire, honestly. Anyway, that's a long answer, but man, there's no end of problems I have with this video as far as is it even legitimate and authentic or not. If it turns out that this is authentic, I'm baffled, and I hope that this wasn't. This is a double negative. It's either inauthentic and we've got crazy deep state nonsense going on here, or it is authentic and this officer mistakenly shot somebody and it's a disaster. But either way, something completely out of whack is going on here.
Well, one thing's for sure that there's no question about. It was absolutely racially motivated.
Yeah, of course.
You know what?
That might have been sarcasm. I'm sorry.
You're right. Yeah, if it's a fake, you're right, because it's the same old divide and conquer. You know, terrorism doesn't work anymore. Feminism doesn't seem to be quite effective enough for whomever's behind all this. So let's divide and conquer. Let's spin up a bunch of young folks mainly and get everybody mad as hell at each other based on varying, skin tones. And we got to go quick because it's going to be summer. A bunch of white people are going to look a lot closer to brown, and brown are going to look closer to black. So we got to hurry, right? Because you can't tell after everybody gets tan who's who anymore. What passes for black in Miami is completely different than Cuba and New York City and Detroit. And I've been to all those places. So, but where's the report? The sound? Where's the muzzle blast?
Yeah, because you hear her again saying, taser, 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 and then there's a little break. And she says, "Holy shit, I shot him." It's like,
yeah. Now maybe somebody will say, "Well, the gunfire blanked out the microphone." How come it's never done that on any police camera I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah, never. Exactly.
Not one stinking time have I ever seen the microphone get overwhelmed, because these systems that the law enforcement are wearing are designed exactly for this purpose, to record everything. Gunshots, number of gunshots, all the visual you can get. I just look and I think, I don't buy it. It makes no damn sense. And then the idea is he, got the car going and he zoomed off and died, or something of that effect. I just think, wait, what? Where's the gunshot? To me, it stinks to high heaven. And I'm already coming into this highly suspicious. Even as somebody who's former law enforcement, I come into it very suspicious because the authenticity of so much these days is so bananas. When Joe Biden waves his hand and it goes through the microphones, not above or around, and you think, does he have that Obi-Wan Kenobi that he just did? Does he have the Force? How did his hands go through the microphone? And then I see this nonsense, and I wonder who's hiring these people in Hollywood, because they're not getting their money's worth. This is easy to fake. Good grief. I don't know where the gunfire is.
Yeah, and it just happened to occur during the George Floyd murder trial with Derek Chauvin. But I tell you guys, the first thing that tipped me off was this veteran, 26 years, trains underlings in the utilization of their service weapon. She doesn't know that she's got a frickin' pistol in her hand instead of a taser. I mean, Jim, do they, and Rich, I'm not a big taser guy. Do they make tasers in the same kind of similar configuration as they make service weapons?
No, they intentionally don't. It's intentional. It's why your gas pedal and your brake pedal are shaped differently and they're set apart. You don't put them next to each other for that very reason.
Hey, Jim, let me ask you this. Okay. Cause I obviously I don't fire tasers. I've never fired tasers, but from what I've seen, tell me if this is right, and explain to Warriors and Wildmen listeners, cause we don't know, what are the differences between the configuration of a taser and a Glock, say a Glock 17 or Glock 19? What would be the difference, like in the grip, the size? I think when I've seen them before, I think they're even a different color, right? Like they have, can you tell us what the difference would be?
Oh yeah, there are plenty of differences. There's every difference they can intentionally manufacture, specifically to prevent somebody getting their weapons mixed up, lethal versus what's considered to be less than lethal or non-lethal. Mm-hmm. And again, if you go back to anywhere in the 28 seconds, you can see both devices side by side. You see the left hip mounted taser of the male officer, and you see the Glock in the right hand of the female officer who allegedly shot this person. Now, if there's some crazy excuse that comes out, one that I've never seen, that I've never heard of, and this lady actually shot this suspect by mistake, okay, now we know that, now we know what happened. It's tragic, and she's in huge trouble because there's no excuse for that. But the Glock would feel completely different in her hand. It would be much lighter. There's a difference in weight because, Taser's not full of lead. She would have to reach clear across to her left hip and deploy her taser. And tasers don't just fall out. There's a method to get them out of the holster. They're fixed. They have what's called stage 1 retention, so they don't fall out during a fight or a suspect doesn't grab it in crowd and start screwing around. Same with a pistol. All law enforcement have to have at least one stage of retention, mechanical retention, where there's a button to depress or something you do with one of your fingers to get that weapon up and out of that holster for 2 reasons. It doesn't fall out when you're fighting. It doesn't fall out when you're running. Right? So it's not when you're in motion, and somebody can't just grab it and instantly have it out and go hot right in the back of your head. Yeah. So to get her to make that mistake, I just don't buy it. Not a 26-year veteran, and especially not a firearms trainer. Her body, even if she was, being shot, she would just sense the difference. And it's almost impossible. But let's give everyone the benefit of that. Okay, she just got that nervous after 26 years doing this, and if she's done this 26 years, there is no way she hasn't been in dozens, plural, of hands-on fights with humans. That's just part of the job.
Well, here's another question. How many times did they say she fired the gun?
Well, I haven't heard how many shots were allegedly fired, nor have I heard how many shots allegedly hit the suspect.
Well, the reason I was wondering is because I've never seen anybody pull the trigger multiple times on a taser.
Well, that's the other thing. Think about this. Let's say that all of this hard to believe actually happened in real life. She pulled her pistol, and for 3 or 4 seconds, she's waving her pistol around right in front of her face, because if she's doing it right, she's got her gun sights up, which it doesn't look like she is, but she could, depending on where her camera's mounted. I don't know. Some people mount them right in the middle of their body armor, some a little higher, some up near the shoulder. It's all different. But if she's looking through her gun sights, which wouldn't be a bad idea, now she's zero contact. She's right there. So technically she wouldn't have to, but you need to. If she fired 1 round, that'd be a pretty good indicator that she doesn't have her hand on a taser. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would just be bam. Geez, that's the loudest taser I've ever heard. Bam. Wow, this taser's really kicking today. Bam. Uh-oh. That's not my taser. Oh my goodness. That's why it didn't come off my left hip. That's why when I drew my gun and felt all that extra weight, and it's comical.
Yeah, and Jim, do tasers have trigger guards?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do, because you.
But are they
accidentally...
but are they configured like a Glock 19? So.
Oh God, no. If you put me in the dark and blindfolded me and put a hood over my head and deafened me with head hearing protection, so I could hear nothing, right? You took my head out of the equation, other than it has a nervous system running in my hand, and you handed me a taser, and then you handed me a Glock, or you handed me a Glock, and then you handed me a taser. I would get 100 out of 100 right every single time, because the weight and the grip and the handle and the controls would all give it away. There's no way I wouldn't know.
Let me take that a step farther. I would bet you this. You tell me what you think. We could blindfold you, and I could throw the Glock at your chest and throw the taser at your chest, and they could bounce off and hit the ground, and you would tell me which one was which.
You wouldn't even have to hit me with it. You could just drop them both on the ground.
Exactly. Just the sound of it, right?
Hey, Jim, how many rounds does that Glock 19 or whatever she had, how many does it hold?
Well, if it's a stock Glock 17, which is what it looks like in motion. Now, she's a little smaller, but most of the folks out there in law enforcement with their issue are running a full-size Glock 17. It should hold 18-1, unless there are magazine restrictions, or she may have a magazine base that adds a couple rounds. Some agencies allow that, some don't, blah, blah, blah. But she's got, it's reasonable to say she's got at least 16, 17 rounds, maybe 18 or 19 or 20. Some guys I know in law enforcement were allowed to add a base plate on their magazine to give them additional capacity.
So what's the weight of something that's fully loaded? Say she had 10 rounds in it, and what's the weight? So what's the weight of the Glock loaded and the weight of the Taser?
Of a loaded Glock 17?
Yeah.
It
I'm
would
looking it
depend
up.
a little bit. It depends a little bit on the ammo, but not much. But you're talking. They usually go with grams. I'd say, gosh, probably a fully loaded 17.
It says it's 29 ounces. A Glock 19. Okay, Glock 17 fully loaded, 2 pounds. Glock 19, 29 ounces. So Glock 17 is 2 pounds. No way a Taser's 2 pounds.
No, absolutely no. And let's say there was some phenomenon, right? She forgot to load. She's going to have a full load, or she's going to be at the station doing paperwork. She's not going to go out with a partially loaded gun. She's just not. You don't do that. You always load your mags to their max capacity before you go out on a patrol. So if she's already been in a firefight that day and spent a few rounds, trust me, she would then be offline for weeks, if not months, because the paperwork, and then they suspend you, usually with pay, unless there's really weird circumstances like this one. You don't run around. It's not like you're in Fallujah where you may have a partial mag that you've reloaded, because even if you're in Fallujah and you get in a firefight and you spend some rounds, the minute you get a chance, you plus that gun up and you put that partial mag somewhere on your body where you're used to parking your partial mags, because it's still got bullets in it, so it's still good. If it's empty, you might very well just drop it because you're not collecting mags out there. But it's full. It's for sure full. That we can just be certain that magazine was full. That Glock's heavier than that Taser. Now, let's say she got a super heavy Taser. There's some magical Taser that's just damn near the same weight, and she was freaked out, and she's on adrenaline, and she's got auditory shutdown, tunnel vision, all that stuff, right? The grip is totally different. And let's say that's not enough. It's on her left hip. It's not on her right hip. If that wasn't enough and she got it all wrong and she just drew her gun and freaked out thinking Taser, Taser, Taser somehow, tell me when she fires it. I see no muzzle flip. I see the slide not working. I hear nothing. That's most likely a 9 millimeter. That's the most common. If it's a 45, it's a 45. It's a 40 cal. It's a 40 cal. Makes a difference. It would pop to beat heck. And echoing into that car, you would hear that. You wouldn't throw the sound downrange. I don't mean echo like Grand Canyon, hello, hello, hello. I mean, it would just be louder than all get out, and that microphone would certainly pick it up. The microphone picks up everything. There's no place where I can hear sound. It's not like, oh, there's a total sound dropout. Someone's played with this footage. Or, oh, the microphone failed miraculously just as she pulled the trigger on the weapon. I also don't see her pulling the trigger, and I can see her finger a bunch.
Yeah.
And a stock Glock trigger, which this, it looks like, and even if it isn't, it's still a trigger. Those things have like a 6-mile long sweep. They're 7 or 8 pounds stock. They're giant triggers to prevent what's called a negligent discharge, which often happens due to adrenaline. And there was some adrenaline here. The suspect is non-compliant, trying to flee. Now it's turning into a felony. But where she's supposed to be shooting, I see nothing. I'm scrolling back and forth. I don't see any clothing movement. Trust me, there would be a lot of clothing movement as those high-pressure gases exit that barrel right behind that round. That's what pushes that round through that tight-fitting barrel. That clothing would move some. Now, somebody can argue, and righteously so, you wouldn't necessarily see a little black bullet hole appear in clothing at that speed. True. It's not like in the movies where they shoot squib rounds and, guts and blood fly everywhere. But I just don't see this gun going off. I really don't. I don't hear it. I don't see it. And I've got a good close-up shot of it throughout the entire time frame where it's supposed to be being fired. There's not a cutaway. There's no, drop out in the footage. There's nothing. Where's the sound?
Hey, Jim, on the Glock, is the loading port on top, or is it on the side, or?
Well, it's a standard magazine fed. Magazine goes up in the handle. If you were to shoot it, the slide would run clear to the back. It would throw the round out and to the right on a Glock, and then it would slam forward and take the next round off the top of the mag and load the gun. You know, it's what's called semi-automatic. One trigger pull, one bullet. One trigger
so you'd
pull,
see.
one bullet.
So you think you would see the slide move if she, you know, indeed, you know, shot the gun, and you'd see a shell eject, right?
You may not see the shell eject. That happens quite quickly. Now, I've seen plenty of shells ejecting because they, you know, glint of the sunlight is on the brass. But I guarantee you, as slowly as I'm scrolling this, there'd be somewhere where I could see that slide moving. And even if for some reason I can't see the slide move at all, which I see it move not at all, her wrist would move. There'd be muzzle flip, meaning the front of the gun would flip up quite a bit actually, with one-handed, you know, as she's doing it.
Would there be?
And I'd hear it.
Would there be a muzzle flash during the day?
Not necessarily. It depends. It depends a lot. She's no doubt carrying good, high quality, what we call street ammo, meaning like, you know, I'll just name a good, high quality street ammo. I'm not saying she's carrying this. I have no idea what kind of bullets that department allows. But let's say she was carrying a Hornady critical defense, you know, very high performance ammunition. Those rounds don't make a discernible muzzle flash in the daylight. They do at night, some. And in each round's different, no matter how many of the identical rounds you shoot. So if it was dark, maybe you'd see a little bit. And this is a pistol, and, you know, it's daylight. So now if it was an AR, then, yeah, sometimes you get pretty considerable muzzle flash, unless you got a good muzzle flash hider and all those things. But what you would absolutely 100%, no matter what, I don't care if it's Incredible Hulk, you're going to see a little muzzle flip, you know, that you just are. You give me the best shooter in the world, Jerry Michalek, and you're still going to see some muzzle flip. It's just part of how the gun works. And you'll see the slide. I'm rolling this so slowly, you know, frame by frame as I scroll back and forth. I would easily be able to find a point where that slide was, you know, clear out of battery to the rear and functioning, and I see nothing. I don't see it, and I don't hear it. If I heard it, you might have a small chance of convincing me that it just didn't show up, but shit, all this sound. So she yells taser, taser, taser. It's reasonable to say and reasonable to assume she didn't shoot before that. She wouldn't shoot a Glock multiple times or even once and then say taser, taser, taser. She'd know by that time, uh-oh, I shot my pistol. I heard it. I felt it. You know, there's it's comedy. I mean, it's ridiculous how bad this looks. I don't mean it's a comedy that they're making this claim. I don't mean that anytime there's an accident with law enforcement, it's comedic. It isn't. And I don't mean that this felony stop needed to go the way it did. This suspect became very non-compliant, and things escalated instantly. That's all on that suspect. But she yelled taser, taser, taser right at about the end of 29. It just doesn't make any sense. This video
Yeah,
is
I like-
so...
Yeah, I like how Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon, he immediately came out, released the footage. I mean, we're talking, a couple hours, something like that. And it's like, yeah, it's an accidental discharge. And when he was selling that, I tell you, that's another video to watch. He looked like he was selling total 100% China white bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. Why would he instantly quit? Why would if there's ever a time where the department and the community needs the chief, this would certainly be it. This claim floating around. I can hear her say taser, taser, taser. I hear all kinds of sounds that are radically lower in decibels than gunshots, and I never see the gun move. I never sound full screen. I've got a really clear picture right after she yells. She yells taser, 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 and nothing happens. Hold on. Except she yells, oh shit. I'll tase you. 27, 28. So taser, taser, taser. The gun doesn't move at all. I've got a bright, it's the best picture I've got of the firearm in the entire video is when she yells taser, 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 and nothing happens. Nothing happens. The firearm stays motionless. There's no sound. The slide doesn't move at all. I don't buy it. I really don't. And all I've got to go by is this video, and the video, which is video and audio, but boy, boy, this is clear footage from 29 till she breaks contact because the suspect, actually, she turns to a fellow officer who, for some reason, so here's another question. The fellow officer breaks contact early. Hold on here. Let me look. So, why does the other officer leave? That also is inexplicable. Shields, taser.
Yeah, he's at the back of the car, you know.
Yeah, Shields, taser. He steps back. Now, what he, maybe he also doesn't say, oh, by the way, that's your Glock. That's your service weapon. That's not your taser. Don't do it. He doesn't say anything. But he, for reasons you would never understand, if she's about to deploy a taser and she's got her pistol and she's overcome all the barriers that we just discussed, and the other officer is looking at her pistol and he misses it, he doesn't notice that it's a pistol, not a taser. What he would not do is run to the back of the car, because what he would expect is she's about to deploy a taser on a suspect wearing a jacket, which you notice because often they don't work on big clothing. But even if he didn't think of that, even if he thought she's going to taser him, he would think she's going to taser him. When you taser somebody, I don't know, maybe 35 to 50% of the time it doesn't work. They just don't work half the time. They're really crappy, or they work for a second, or the prong gets, the prong gets pulled out or brushed off in the melee. They're a mediocre weapon in my, non-lethal in my opinion. They're just, now when they're effective, they're pretty effective. But I have seen guys get tasered, clear to the ground, pull them out, get up, and tackle the cop, or get shot by the police officer.
Yeah.
And there's video of that out, and you can find videos on that all day. Cop tasers guy gets up, kicks cop's ass, or a cop has to shoot bad guy, right? Why did the other officer run? He knows when you taser people, it's maybe going to work pretty well, not too well, or not at all. He's not going to run. He's going to be there to help her restrain the suspect, get him out of the car before the car goes, rocketing down the street and kills somebody, and get the suspect in handcuffs where they've got some control of what now is considered to be the suspect or the threat. He wouldn't run to the back of the car and then look back at her. None of this makes any sense. None of it. And so much of it doesn't make sense at such a high level that, frankly, my bullshit flag pops. I just think, okay, what's really going on here? And I don't mean to in any way reduce or lighten the severity of the situation that they're claiming occurred. All I'm saying is I don't see it in 10 different directions. It's not one thing that doesn't make sense. Every single thing doesn't make sense at such a high level. I don't believe what I'm seeing. I cry foul. I say this makes no sense. Guns make sound. Guns move when they fire. Semi-automatic. You pull the trigger, and part of the energy of the round going off is used to cycle the gun. That makes a lot of action in a hurry. And the human wrist isn't made of steel. That's why you have muzzle flips. That's very standard.
Yeah.
You give me the biggest law enforcement officer in the world, and I'll have him one hand that pistol, and you'll see muzzle flip. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's like saying I stomped on the brakes, but I didn't move in the car seat. Impossible. But there's no sense. It's clear picture. The other officer's behavior doesn't make sense either. And even if you can write the other officer's behavior off as, well, he was freaking out, he just did something wrong, right? Okay, fine. Where's the gunshot?
Yeah.
Hear
everything else, I'll tase you. Taser. Holy shit, I shot him.
Yeah.
And there's no gunshot.
Yeah, you hear everything else. I mean, it's when I watch it at speed, I think, what? I don't know. I don't know how you can have a gunshot and not hear it. But you can hear all the background noise. You can hear a human voice. I don't know how you can't hear the gunshot. Because, boy, is there ever a dominant sound on a arrest scene?
Hello.
Nothing.
Yeah,
you don't miss it. If he had the car horn pressed down, you would still hear the gunshot over it easily. If he had pushed the car horn and was holding it down steady, just a nonstop car horn, you would still hear the gunshot over it with ease. It would drown it out entirely for that, 2 or 3 milliseconds of the report. When those gases leave that barrel, they expand so fast, it makes what you know as a gunshot. You don't get around that. Even if she had a sound suppressor on there, you hear them erroneously called silencers, erroneously because they don't silence. They greatly reduce the muzzle blast, the sound report, but you still hear it. You could hear a suppressed round in this situation. There's nothing louder. You hear it would sound like you blew a tire, like pish, big air blast. It doesn't go kaboom, but this is comical. I don't get it. If I'm missing something, fine. I stand corrected, but I'm not missing 10 things.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Sure. It'd be interesting to see the other cop's footage from his camera.
Well, look at this. This footage stops at what 2 or 3 seconds after the car zooms off. But look at the other officers' body language and expressions.
Right. The dude across the street and then the guy at the back of the patrol car, they're just kind of like, what happened?
All right, Jim, final analysis, big dog. We appreciate your expertise.
Yeah. And look how fast she holsters her weapon. I've been on scenes where cops shot at people and hit people and missed and stuff. One of the first things that the senior officers do is like, everybody take your finger off your trigger, put your gun in your holster, make sure it's in safe, because, go watch 50 police officers shoot somebody videos that were picked up on police officer cameras. See if there's no sound ever.
Right.
See if the cop instantly reholsters as the felon zooms away. Try to find it. Anything that's remotely like this out there. I bet you can't. Anyway, so that's my opinion. It's worth what you paid for it. But gosh, I've done this a long time and shot a lot of guns and been around a lot of this kind of stuff, and I've never seen anything at all like this. I can't think of one situation that I've ever seen or heard of or watched on video or seen in a training video. Nothing. Not even close. And I've been working with and around law enforcement since 2000. That doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe this is the first time ever that someone fired a Glock at close range with sound rolling and it made no sound, and the slide didn't slide, and you can't see the cycle, and there was no muzzle flip, and the other officers had the look of, okay, what do we do next? Which would not be their expression. So
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't think people should be burning towns down and looting pizza shops and stealing tennis shoes just yet. Frankly, I think we got a divide and conquer strategy here. I really do. Now, let's see if there's a funeral. Let's see what goes on here, because this kind of stuff gets a little tough to contain when it's not legitimate. People start talking, stuff starts popping out the sides.
Good stuff, Jim. Thank you for being on Warriors and Wildmen, big dog. Appreciate the analysis.
Yeah, you bet. Hopefully all law enforcement out there gets the respect that they still deserve, because, I'll tell you this much. You hear about the bad cop often, but there's a bad teacher, there's a bad priest, there's a bad pilot, there's a bad young teenager, there's a bad everything everywhere. But 99% of all the people out there are good, and 99% of the law enforcement are damn good. Those people, they do what they do because they care. They're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the glory. They're not doing it because it's a clean job where people throw their feces on your head. They're doing it because they feel like they have a duty to serve, and that's why they're doing it. So, still buy your officers lunch, shake their hands, tell them you got their back and you appreciate them working their butts off, because you would be hard pressed to find a bad cop. You can find a bad priest faster than you can find a bad cop. You can find a bad trash truck driver faster than you can find a bad cop. It's a hard job, and you don't want to make a crazy black and white decision, no pun intended in this case. Really take your time on leaping to conclusions off these emotionally provocative videos. We all saw what happened when the George Floyd video came out, and everybody went berserk, and then the coroner's report came out and said, and it reads, I've read it, no evidence of mechanical asphyxiation. Cause of death, fentanyl overdose. You can blame China. That's where it's coming from. And they're using the proxy army of the Mexican drug cartels to get that crap up here. And then last but not least, you can blame George Floyd for ingesting a bunch of fentanyl. That was a grown man. It's his choice to do that. If I go out and I do a bunch of fentanyl, don't feel sorry for me if I overdose. In fact, don't feel sorry for me at all. That's a decision. He's a grown-ass man. I don't agree with everything I see in the video, but I've seen the whole video, and it's not what they showed.
Yeah.
And that was a legal hold at that time. And The only injury they could find that I read in the coroner's report was a cracked rib. You know where that came from? CPR. How many times that officer called for medical and then check on medical? And I'm hearing the Black Lives Mafia say, we're going to burn every city in America if we don't get what we want. Oh, really? I don't think so. That's not how this country works.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably criminal. So I would say to anybody out there who doesn't have a background in this, ride the brakes on getting too wound up about this until the truth finally works its way out from under all the nonsense that's been going on in this country for the last 2 or 3 years. Because this stinks. This video smokes. There's nothing about it that makes sense from a professional point of view, as far as I'm concerned.
Good stuff, Jim. Thank you for being on board.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jim. Good talking to you again.
See you later, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Cheers. Wow.
Craziness. I just think it's good information to factor in, and everybody, like you said, needs to slow down. Just slow down, find out what's happening. Because we know the news is selling sensationalism and not really peddling facts. So I think everybody needs to take their time.
Yeah, I wonder what the excuse makers are going to say about the missing gunshot, the loud missing gunshot, the point blank footage of this quote unquote gun going off doesn't show again the slider going back, no muzzle flash, no bam, Hear everything else, Rich. You can hear everything else going on in that video, but no gunshot. Go sell crazy somewhere else, folks. Hey, what does the Warrior and Wildmen subscriber, listener, the one that's just popping in and checking out what we're doing, what do they need to do?
Go to warriorsandwildmen.com, subscribe so we can send you a couple emails a week, keep you in touch with what's going on. If you can still find us on social media, do that. And if you want to help us send this message out, go to the War Chest. You can donate. That's tax deductible. We'll send you that information. And also for those that are donating and helping out, we really appreciate you guys making it happen. Warriors and Wildmen.